Want to hear something really scary? Human obesity has doubled in the last 30 years. 40% of our American teenagers are now overweight or obese. Most of this can be traced back to sugar in our food supply, and there are 56 different names for added sugar in food. These are things you need to know. Now, considering the progress of the 20th century, we should be in pretty good shape, right? I mean, our food supply is clean and safely packaged, inspected. It meets high standards, right? And we have the world's #1 gross domestic product. So we're good, right? Okay, so what don't we know? Where shall I begin? Let's compare today's eating in America to 100 years ago, 1926. Today we consume 20% more calories than our ancestors did. We eat on average 5 times as much sugar, and when it comes to liquid sugar in particular, we consume 3,000% more than our ancestors did 100 years ago. A high sugar diet is one of the most likely causes of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome includes things like diabetes, dementia, cancer, heart disease, and stroke. And Dr. Robert Lustig, endocrinologist, refers to metabolic syndrome as a slow and painful journey toward death. 80% of the deaths and 80% of the insurance costs in the United States now are due to a metabolic condition, very likely associated with a high sugar diet. We waste $1.8 billion every year on metabolic conditions. So what the heck has happened? How did we get this way? Why are we eating ourselves to death? Well, it probably started with government subsidies almost 100 years ago during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, when farms were floundering and people were hungry. The government started to subsidize the growing of certain crops. Interestingly, they still subsidize them. But now modern technology has let us take that food from the field and transform it into things we never could have believed would be possible all those years ago. And our biochemistry, which is just the natural way our bodies react, drives us toward eating palatable foods, things that taste good. And it also automatically stores fat, because that's the way the human body keeps from starving to death. Oh, and then we have that thing called profit. Yes, today's food industry has a profit margin of 45%. Almost half of what you pay for the food you take off the grocery store shelf goes into somebody's pocket as profit. Now, that profit is due in part to modern manufacturing. We can take food and make it into things that people now call food. And when this first started, well, about 40 years ago, we were told, oh, it's the fat you're eating that's making you so fat. Let's take the fat out of food. And through modern manufacturing, they were able to suck the fat right out. And you know how it tasted? It tasted like cardboard. And so they put sugar in to make it taste good. And food is so much more accessible today than ever before. Do you know that on average, food has traveled 1,500 miles by the time it gets to your table? And then there's that marketing and messaging all about why you should buy this, and constantly telling you about the foods that are available to you, like these that might be part of your diet, but did you know every one of them contains added sugar? Today we even have supposed health food items like super beets. They're for your heart and for your blood pressure. These are chews. The two most predominant ingredients in super beets are types of sugar. So what we're dealing with today is something people, some of us, call frankenfoods. You remember the story of Frankenstein. He was a scientist who was actually a grave robber. And so he went into one grave after another and stole different body parts. So a foot from this grave and a hand from that grave and a face from the third grave. And he sewed them together. And then he had this great big humanoid looking creature. And he used modern technology to bring it to life. And back in those days, modern technology was electricity. So he electrified his monster and turned him loose in the community, and he scared the heck out of everybody. Well, that's what we're doing today with food. We are combining things that nature never anticipated. We are combining foods that were never meant to go together. And so they are done in an artificial way. They don't grow this way. They don't appear on Earth this way. But by modern technology, we can do this. And then we assimilate them into society, just like Frankenstein's monster. And so this is what happens. We take a perfectly good, nutritious, natural apple, and we make it into a jar of applesauce. We take perfectly good, natural peanuts, and we make them into peanut butter. We take perfectly good Yukon Gold potatoes and we make them into some kind of frozen, extra crispy, some kind of French fries. And we take good Wisconsin cheddar cheese and we make it into goldfish crackers. And every one of these processed foods contains sugar, and every one of them provides profit for our food industry. Why do we do this? Well, did you know that 1/3 of Americans don't know how to cook? Which might explain why 60% of our food is now consumed outside the home. We don't have much control over our diet, and we're choosing not to exercise control over our diet. So, consider this. Look, these are all processed foods. All processed foods that contain no sugar. You can get processed foods that contain no sugar if you know how to find them. And that is to look at the ingredients, not the nutrition label, but the ingredients, and find out whether they contain sugar. And you can't go wrong if you eat whole, natural foods that aren't even processed. Imagine. These are the foods that can't possibly contain added sugar, but you have to know how to prepare them. And there are 56 different words for sugar, so you're better off with natural foods if you just learn what to do with them. I'm telling you, you've been warned. Our food supply now is 70% containing added sugar, and we are in danger of eating ourselves to death as Americans and as a human race. I've been studying this for a while. I've written a number of articles here in the Speakeasy about sugar and its dangers. You can read those if you want more information, or I urge you to consult my trusted sources, Dr. Robert Lustig, who is an endocrinologist, and Dr. Casey Means.